Welcome to Her Subconscious Blueprint, your no BS space for subconscious healing, bold breakthroughs, and manifestations. I'm Jen Boyd, hypnotherapist, mindset coach, and your new healing hype girl. Today's episode is tender, it's raw, and honestly, it's one of those episodes that almost didn't happen. But I knew I needed to release this episode. Not just for me, but for you. Because if you're on any kind of growth journey, especially one where you're breaking cycles of generational patterns, healing your trauma, and choosing a new identity, you've probably faced judgment, or been misunderstood, or had someone question your heart, your intentions, or your story. So, here's what I want to share today. I recently heard a negative comment about my podcast. They said they felt like I was maybe calling my mom out, maybe even putting her down in something that I shared in one of my episodes. I'm assuming it's probably the first episode. And I'll be honest, at first, it stung a little, but it didn't sting for the reasons you might think. It stung because my mom is my rock. She's my best friend. She's someone I've been through so much with. Our relationship is layered and real and full of healing. We have grown together through unimaginable pain. We've had conversations that most people wouldn't believe. As you may have heard in my first episode, my mom had me when she was 16, so we are very close. We have a special bond. We have healed side by side. We've made it through things that could have torn us apart. But instead, they brought us closer. So to have someone misinterpret that or paint it differently, yeah. It hurt. But the more I sat with it, the more I realized that that comment had nothing to do with me, and it had everything to do with them. No one knows the private conversations that we've had. No one knows the tears and the repair and the safety that we've had to rebuild together in chaos. And what people might not see is that my mom is actually proud of me. So when I heard that comment that I was, quote unquote, calling her out, it stopped me for a second, but only a second. Because the people who say things like that, they don't understand. They don't know what it takes to heal. They don't know what it's like to speak a truth that was buried for years. And do it with your mom's support. They don't know what it's like to walk through the fire together and come out holding hands. And it made me think that we live in a world that still believes that telling the truth is betrayal. That honoring your story means dishonoring someone else's. That if you say, I experience pain, you must be pointing fingers. But that is not what healing is. That's not what my work is. And that's not what this podcast is about. Sharing my truth is not about blame. It's about liberation. It's about breaking generational cycles and patterns that none of us signed up for, but all of us were impacted by. It's about saying, we're not keeping secrets anymore. We're not pretending everything's fine when it wasn't. We're not letting shame win. We're naming what happened, and we're choosing to grow through it. Calling someone out? No, that's not what I'm doing. What I'm doing is calling myself forward. Calling the truth forward, calling the pain forward, not to dwell in it, but to alchemize it into freedom. And yes, Sometimes the truth involves my mom because she was there. She lived it too. And she did a fucking amazing job at it. There's no question. But what people don't see is that she's not offended. She's empowered. She's a part of this story because she chose to heal right alongside of me. So, to anyone that says, "How could you call your mom out?" My answer is simple. You don't know the entire story. You don't know our healing. You don't know our love. You're looking through your lens, not mine. And that's okay. But don't confuse your perception with my truth. Your opinion is not my truth. We don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. And that is a quote that I have lived by for so long that has brought so much healing. And it has so much truth to it. We filter everything through our own lens. That's what life is. That's what experiences are. We're looking at them through our own lens. Our experiences, our wounds, our stories, our triggers. So when someone hears my story and assumes that I'm calling someone out, it's likely because they haven't had the kind of conversations that I have had. Maybe they haven't been given permission to speak openly about their past. Maybe they're carrying unprocessed pain that makes my freedom feel threatening. Maybe they see themselves in my story and that makes them uncomfortable. And here's the thing. That's okay. We are all projecting all the time. That's part of being human. What matters is what we do with that awareness. There's a quote from Wayne Dyer that says, "When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change." That's not just about being optimistic. It's about shifting perception because perception is everything. Think about it like this. Two people can hear the same story and walk away with two totally different interpretations. Why? Because they're not listening with the same filter. They're listening with the filter of who they are, what they've experienced, and what they've healed and what they haven't. And this brings me back to one of my very favorite lessons from Wayne Dyer's book, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. And in his commentary on verse 20 of the Tao Te Ching, he writes, "Give up needing to be right. Give up needing to win. Give up needing to be noticed. Be at peace with yourself and allow others to be themselves." When I first read that, it shook something loose in me. Because if I'm being honest, for a long time, I needed people to understand me. I needed to be seen as the good one, the one with good intentions, the one who meant no harm. But that's the ego. And the ego is always hungry for validation. The Tao reminds us to release that need, to let go of being right, and instead be at peace. Because when I cling to needing to be understood, I'm actually giving my power away. I'm outsourcing my peace to someone else's opinion. And the Tao teaches when you release the need, you become free. In another verse, Wayne Dyer reflects on the concept of being like the sea, willing to let all things flow to you because you don't compete, you don't control, and you don't resist. That kind of surrender isn't weakness. It's the deepest strength. It's saying, I am who I am. I will keep loving, keep showing up, and keep telling my truth, even if no one applauds. And honestly, that's where I'm at now. I'm not trying to convince anyone anymore. I'm not fighting to be understood. I'm not spending energy trying to explain or justify myself. I'm not arguing with someone's perception of me because that perception isn't about me. It's about their lens, their journey, their healing, or lack thereof. Wayne says, the Tao does nothing but leaves nothing undone. Meaning, you're in alignment. You don't have to force things. You don't have to defend or explain or prove. You just are. You just be. And from that energy, everything flows. Miracles happen. Synchronicities just happen. So when I look back at the comment, the one that said that I was calling my mom out, I can now see it through a different lens. One with no resistance, no fighting, just compassion, just presence, just me choosing peace over performance. And that is freedom. And that brings me to something I have had to deeply internalize on this journey. What someone else thinks of me is none of my business. Let me just say that again in case you didn't hear me. What someone else thinks of you, it's none of your business. It's not my job or your job to manage someone else's reactions. It's not my job to water myself down or tiptoe around my own truth to make someone else feel comfortable. And it's definitely not my job to carry the projections of people who never dared to share their own story, but are quick to criticize mine. We have to detach from the opinions of people who were never meant to understand us in the first place. And I get it. It's hard, especially when the criticism comes from people that you thought would be in your corner. You know what I mean? The family member who's silent when you succeed, the friends who disappear when you finally start honoring your boundaries, the people you once looked up to who now look down on you. But here's what I've learned. Not everyone can come with you on your journey. And honestly, not everyone should be invited. And not everyone will get it. And that is okay. Your stories are like fingerprints, uniquely ours. No one has lived your story. No one has lived my story. And when we try to fit our healing into someone else's comfort zone, we end up betraying ourselves. I saw this quote recently, and I want to share it with you. It says, there will be people who misunderstand your evolution, who will weaponize your vulnerability, who will try to shame your story because they're not brave enough to look at their own. Do not stop. Do not soften. Do not shrink. You are not here to be palatable. You are here to be free. That part, you are not here to be palatable, resonated with me and maybe with you too. Because I've spent years trying to be palatable, to be easy, digestible, to not rock the boat, to hold it all together and never say too much, to hold it all in. And the truth is, that version of me was slowly dying inside. So if you've been there, if you've felt the ache of being misunderstood, if you've been judged for your healing, and if someone made you question whether it's safe to tell your truth, this episode is your permission slip. You don't need to explain yourself to people who aren't even trying to understand. You don't need to twist yourself into knots to be liked. You don't need to carry guilt for choosing yourself. But even when you know that, even when your soul is anchored in truth, sometimes the mind will still spiral. That's where the next layer of awareness comes in. Because while you might get 99 kind, beautiful, supportive messages, all it takes is one harsh comment, one sideways glance, one judgmental tone, one piece of criticism, and suddenly your nervous system is lit up like a fucking Christmas tree. And that's not because you're weak. It's not because you're insecure. It's because your brain is literally wired that way. I've talked about this before, but it's called negativity bias, and it's a deeply ingrained survival mechanism. Back when our ancestors were scanning the environment for danger, it was far more important to notice the lion in the bushes than admire the pretty sunset. So our minds evolved to prioritize the threat, to focus on the one thing that feels unsafe, even if something else around us was calm, kind, and loving. So when someone makes a comment that stings a little, especially if it hits an old wound, your brain doesn't say, "Oh, but look at all the love and support." No, it zooms in on the one negative voice. It spirals, it overanalyzes, it builds a case, and it says, "See, this is why you shouldn't speak up. This is why you play small. This is why it isn't safe to speak your truth. You need to stay quiet." Should I quit? Should I give up? No, this is when you go even stronger. And here's what I want you to remember. Just because something feels true in the moment, it doesn't mean it is true. Other people's opinions of you is not your truth. Your brain is doing what it is trained to do. It's doing its job, but you just have to make sure you don't get stuck there. You get to retrain it. You get to say, "Thank you for trying to protect me, but now I choose something different." You get to anchor into the love. You get to root into the truth. You get to remind yourself of all the people who do see you, do get you, and are cheering you on even in silence. Because this is the work, not just healing the wounds, but retraining the mind that learned to expect pain. So when that judgment comes in, I asked myself, is this true? What would love say right now? Can I see this through a lens of compassion for myself and for them? And maybe that person who judged you is still learning how to give themselves permission to speak their truth. Maybe they've never felt safe enough to tell their story out loud. Maybe they carry guilt for things they've never healed. And maybe my words touched a nerve. Not because they were wrong, but because they were real. Here's a lesson in the book called The Tools. And it talks about rejection as a necessary portal for growth. That every time we're judged, doubted, or criticized, we have a choice. We can either shrink, we can quit, or we can grow and expand and shine bright. To internalize it or to alchemize it. And I've decided I will always choose expansion because that means choosing me. Because here's what's also true. You'd be surprised who's watching. You'd be surprised who's listening, and you'd be surprised at who's rooting for you in silence, being transformed by your courage, by your voice, and by your story, even if they never say it or you never see them. That's what keeps me going. That's what reminds me to stay the course, and that's why I started. If I can help just one person and inspire just one person, that is enough for me, because I truly believe in the ripple effect. If I help one person, that one person helps one person, and that is how healing and change evolves. And if you're listening to this right now and you've ever felt the sting of judgment or criticism, the ache of being misunderstood, the loneliness of walking a path not everyone claps for, let this episode be your reminder to keep going, keep being brave, keep telling your story. Not everyone will get it, but the people who need it will. Don't stop because of one comment. Don't give up because of one misunderstanding. You're not here to be approved of. You're here to be you, fully, freely, authentically, and unapologetically. And the world needs that version of you, not the watered down one, not the one that hides, the one that dares to heal out loud, the one that chooses love over fear, the one that keeps shining no matter who throws shade. Because the ones who criticize, they would never dare do what you're doing. So let them talk, let them project, let them stay where they are. And you, babe, you keep going. Your healing is valid, your story is sacred, and your truth is changing lives. So don't let that sneaky voice of doubt creep in. You know, the one that whispers and makes you question everything right when you're on the edge of something big. Let me be the louder voice right now, the one that says, keep going. Don't let one opinion from someone stop you, someone who was never meant to understand you anyways. Be the reason that you shrink back or stay silent or quit. Don't hand your power to someone who hasn't earned the right to hold it. Use your voice. Speak your truth. You are not too much. You are not too bold. And you are not too emotional. You are exactly who you were meant to be. And babe, keep going. You're not done yet. And if this episode brought clarity, comfort, or just a much needed reminder to keep going and don't give up and don't silence your voice, please share it or tag me on Instagram. Let's turn personal healing into collective empowerment. And check out my self-guided hypnosis to help you stay anchored in your truth, even when the world tries to shake it. You've got this. And I am so full of love and gratitude that I get to share my story with you. This is Her Subconscious Blueprint, where we don't just chase the dreams, we become them. And remember, you don't get what you want, you get who you are. So go out and be that version today. Much love and gratitude. I will see you next time.